2, 1. Good afternoon. This is Animal on Control. Welcome to the voice chat. These calls are recorded for uploading to social media, and by joining a call, you are consenting to being recorded. Anyone wishing to join a call or the Animal on Control Discord should email me at animaloncontrol@gmail.com, and I will reply with instructions. Today's topic: Kyleen Waltman update, North Korea bans dogs as pets, and the upcoming Dog Nutter Olympics. Joining me is Sheepie. What is up?
Hey, what's up? Just living the dream here next to my dog pound neighbor.
Yeah, didn't you say that they got more dogs in, or didn't they bring in an XL bully or something?
I noticed the other day a new to me, had never seen before, gigantic looking pit bull. And when I say gigantic, I mean like it was tall. It was like super way taller than normal. So I don't know what the heck it is, but it was like a brindle pit bull that was like extra tall.
Oh, I've seen that. In fact, yeah, I encountered one of those in my neighborhood a couple of years ago. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, they're enormous. You know, they're dogzillas. There was a dog, I think I told you, that I was walking down the block and it came charging out from behind a house, just barreling straight at me. And it was just like a Sidewinder missile locked onto a heat target. And he got up to me and I just leaned in, I yelled, "Sit!" And he just flipped over. He just rolled over on his back and put his belly up.
Oh,
So
that's fortunate.
that's fortunate. Yeah, I found that actually that if you really get like alpha with them, you can make them BTFO. So yeah, that was oh yeah, I hear you. So you still have has the neighbor passed out again that you know of?
I'm now expecting to see that every time I drive up. Like, is she going to be laying on the driveway again? So
Face
far,
down.
no.
Yeah, face down.
I swear it was so weird. I really wish I would have taken a picture because I almost feel like it's unbelievable. You know, like picture it didn't happen, but I swear it was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
But she soon got up and walked back into the house, right? Or did the
I mean, I didn't watch her like walk back into the house or anything. I stopped and like she like lifted her head and then like started moving like one of her legs, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going now.
Maybe she tripped over one of the dogs or slipped in dog shit.
Who knows? Ew, but she's face down in the driveway where she's hosing dog shit off like all the time.
Oh God. That's so nasty.
Maybe she got down there to just inhale it. I mean, really get a good whiff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You start huffing that wonderful aroma.
Yeah, she's just.
Well, there was something, you know, I Hate Dogs post. Was it I Hate Dogs posted a video, and it was somebody's, you know, Ring camera, I guess, had caught. It was a woman walking her dog, and they were attacked by a pit bull. I forget exactly, but she kept falling over. Like she was drunk or on drugs or something. She just couldn't stand up straight. She just kept falling over. Meanwhile, these two dogs, you couldn't see it too well. It's kind of off in the distance a bit, but yeah, maybe there's something going on there too.
Maybe. I don't remember that one, but nothing at this point surprises me, so she's high on her own supply, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, jeez. So anyway, let's move on to the topic. So I'm going to share the screen. And yeah, Pet Rescue Exposed. That's another really good Reddit to hang out on.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. I really like this one. And this came up, well, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago. And this was actually something I monologued about a couple of years ago, where Kyleen Waltman was attacked by a neighbor's 3 pit bulls. And it's really just a miracle she's still alive, depending on how you look at it. I mean, both her arms were torn off. She was disemboweled. She lost her colon, and her throat was torn out. So like her esophagus is gone. Her colon is gone. Both arms are gone. I'm thinking I couldn't live like that.
I'd
couldn't do
prefer
it.
to die, probably.
Yeah, I
Honestly,
think I agree. It's like I don't know
a
how
fate worse than death.
it is, and that's the thing is, the people track the deaths from these things, but you get quite a few. I mean, probably hundreds or thousands of injuries like that every year. But so what happened was it's pretty typical situation where the dogs had been um a nuisance before. Let's go down here. Yeah. So yeah, March 2022, a couple of years ago, right? The attack resulted in amputation of both arms, permanent damage to her esophagus and voice box, and removal of her colon. So, but here's, predictably, the dogs had attacked a man in 2021, and the lawsuit, because she's suing the animal control for negligence. It's interesting because, and these kind of cases pop up. It actually seems like more and more often, they're not uncommon, where animal control or perhaps the county gets sued in a case like this. And it's my understanding that authorities are protected by something, I believe it's called qualified immunity. Let's look that up real quick.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that term, but
yeah, I think that's what it's called, qualified immunity. So what is that? Explained. What is qualified immunity? Yeah, Americans Against Qualified Immunity hold government officials accountable. Okay. Yeah, so really what it is it's a legal doctrine that shields government officials from accountability when they violate your constitutional rights. I'm sure they'll probably argue that, I guess you have no constitutional right to be protected from your neighbor's dogs. But here's the thing too, is these were repeat offenders. And this is happening more and more often. It happened in the Clonda Ritchie case. She was killed by a neighbor's pit bulls, and her estate sued the county and got a $3.5 million judgment. This is a similar case. So here's it is. Yeah, and this goes on and on. So the owner got hit with some minor charges, but it's not really justice. So here it is. A law firm said before Waltman was attacked, but multiple complaints made to Abbeville County Animal Services about the dangerous nature of the dogs, but appropriate measures were not taken to ensure the safety of the community. Well, of course not, because all they care about is the best interest of the dogs and the owner. The lawsuit says a man was attacked by the same dogs in 2021. So this is so preventable. Okay, they reached out. They're still waiting for a call back from the Abbeville County. This tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilant oversight and proactive measures to address potential risks posed by dangerous animals within our community. You know what they say, animals, 99.9% of the time, unless maybe you're backpacking the Yukon territory, something like this involves a dog, somebody's pet dog, or perhaps a pack of feral dogs. So the lawsuit alleges gross negligence in handling of the previous complaints. So of course, they argue that if they'd actually done their jobs, okay, the prior warnings, the attack could have been prevented. Absolutely. But here's what's going on. If you scroll back up to the top of this, okay, it said, most shockingly, 2 months after Waltman's near fatal attack by I can't remember if it's 2 or 3, the Abbeville shelter is publicly declaring they will not take in dogs. It's a very common scenario because what happens is, due to no-kill policies and mentalities, the shelter fills up with murder mutts because they have limited capacity. But then they just stop impounding dogs because there's no place to put them, right? But they don't put the dogs down because of the no-kill policies. These dogs essentially, they've been attributed a right to endless housing on the taxpayer dime. So here they're saying a shelter is critically over capacity. They keep saying it. Okay, not to pick up, please contact animal control. So this is similar also to that postal worker that was killed in Florida. I think it was last year, was the same thing. And actually that owner had actually asked that animal control take the dogs off his hands, and they refused because the shelter was full. They had no place to put them. But this is, and the comments on this are really good also. They said, one of the functions of animal control in the shelters they own or contract with is public safety. Well, the thing is that unfortunately, I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work, but it doesn't anymore. These organizations are completely controlled by really dog advocates. They're doggy social workers. They're acting in the best interests of the dogs and the dog owners. Public health, public safety are just irrelevant to the whole equation. That's all they care about. Okay, well, that function, it goes on as that function has been shoved to the side by pressure campaigns to make dog welfare, right? Where that's the only metric is a euthanasia rate, right? Of course, the dog owner is, he's basically broke. To address this problem, take the mauling's criminal, right? Criminalize the dog attacks. And I like what this person has to say. As far as I'm concerned, being closed to intake should be grounds for immediate termination. Yes, there's a couple of ways you could manage that. The shelter's full. They just get the hot shot on the spot. Boom. They don't even get, they can maintain their no-kill rate because the dogs weren't killed in the shelter. They're put down.
Honestly, that's a good way to fudge it.
Too, it's like I'm always looking at ways. How can we spin this? I mean, I'm a shameless propagandist, I admit. Yeah, you know what? Don't even take him to the shelter. Just boom. Or the other thing you could do is, if we ditch the no-kill mentality, is just do like accounts, call it first in, first out. So whatever dogs have been in the shelter the longest, so you could bring in 3 more and there's no room. Okay, which 3 have been here the longest? Boom, 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 hot shot, all 3 of them. Hey, now there's room again. But yeah, just allowing these murder mutts to terrorize these communities is not an option. Like, I don't care, call the cops and have them shot. Or does hell allow people like us to shoot them?
That's the thing. Yeah, it's just unbelievable that we're living in what should be like a first world country, that we have this office that exists, right? Or like this, I don't know what you want to call it, like this government position, this taxpayer funded agency, yeah, and yet people are getting their arms ripped off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just unbelievable. These agencies need to be, I feel like this is one of those cases where, they say anyone who wants to, be a leader, probably shouldn't be. Everyone that is staffing these agencies are there because, like you said, they're dog advocate, they're pro-dog welfare people. They need to be all fired completely and replaced by reluctant. I don't want to work in or near a dog's or a dog shelter. I be forced as a civic duty to serve there for 2 years, and I would euthanize them immediately.
What's the problem is that anybody who would actually do this job correctly doesn't want the job. Like you said, the leadership position. Actually, what this person is referring to, he said being should be grounds for immediate termination. At first, initially, I thought they meant termination of the dogs. So I guess this has a double meaning, but it also means that, yeah, you're right, they should all be fired. It's like, okay, you're refusing to do your job, bye. Because really, why have them? They serve no purpose. Why have animal control? That's where my handle came from. They're animal control. Because if they're going to act like that, why have them? They should just be shut down. And you know what? Yeah, just make the dogs that's a small government solution. Just get rid of all the protections for these things. Just make them, implement Rule 308 and just be done with it that way. Then there's nothing to worry about. So, so we need to fire public servants who have zero interest in serving the public. I'm going to link to, there was a monologue I did. Actually, it was based on another podcast. I think it was Mudhead 16. It was called the Muttrix or the Mutt Matrix. And what I was doing was I was covering, it was a podcast between, it was two people, it was Douglas Wolf and Tony Selesky. And it was really interesting because both of them talk about people having personal reasons for being in the space. Doug's granddaughter had been mauled by pit bulls. Tony's son had been mauled by pit bulls. I think both children survived, but with serious injuries. But Tony, and his wife, they'd agitated to get laws changed. But it's very, very interesting. And actually, in that, in the About section of that, I linked to the entire podcast. He really gets into how these agencies work, like the inner, workings of the Mutt Matrix. And that was a point he made. Yeah, it's like, during the 90s, what happened was all these agencies got converged by these animal advocates. So again, their vocation is not public safety. These are people who have no interest outside of animals. It really means dogs 99.9% of the time. They don't care about any other animal.
Well, there really isn't any other animal that's needing to be permanently housed. You know what I mean? That's like flooding the streets and like what other animal even okay, I guess you could say shelters have cats too, but no one's getting their arms ripped off by a cat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and actually cats don't get equal treatment anyway. Like some of these shelters, I've done, quite a bit of due diligence. Like you'll take, say, a pit bull intake or some dog that's actually injured people and sent them to the hospital. That dog gets to stay forever, right? But a cat that's, I understand there's some people in the space that don't like cats, whatever, but a cat that's never really offended against anybody gets the hot shot in a week and a half, 2 weeks, right? The whole thing is totally rigged in favor of dogs. It's ridiculous. But like you said, it's a very difficult problem to solve because, anybody who would actually do this job correctly, like us, I would not want to do this. Maybe for $1 million a year, maybe, but I would not choose this as a vocation. Part of it too is that if you do take a job like this, you're going to, again, you're going to get chewed up and spit out by the Mutt Matrix. I think we were talking about that in the Discord. There was a animal control director in, I believe it was Toledo, Ohio, and his name was Tom Skeldon. And he was the animal control director, but he's a good example of what happens to an animal control agent that actually does their job, right? Because they're saying, oh no, he's euthanizing pit bulls. It's like, yeah. That was actually prescribed by law. He's actually doing his job. He's impounding at large and dangerous animals. He's giving him the hot shot as per written policy. But he's public enemy number one. He's the spawn of Satan. So that's the thing is that so he was fired because all the dog nuts agitated against him and he was let go. So the thing is, very few people who would actually do this job correctly would actually want the job, and even the handful that do would be fired for doing so. It's like I said, the whole system is totally corrupt. It's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, I hope Kyleen wins her lawsuit against the county. I mean, suing the government that just means that taxpayers are going to have fewer services or pay more in taxes, but maybe it'll light a fire under the local politicians. You can hope.
Oh yeah, and even the local community, you would hope. I mean, just aside from grade A, like level 10 nutters, I would think that everyone in the area would be absolutely horrified that like that could have been me or my mom or
Yep.
sister or you know what I mean, neighbor. Like that is terrifying to think that you like you said earlier, and I agree, like I would prefer to just die. I couldn't live with missing my colon and my arms and like my throat.
Yeah.
And yeah, you would think that on top of just the horror of that type of thing happening in your community, like then your city, like your tax dollars going to like fund or pay out like a massive lawsuit. I don't
Yep.
know. You would just think that the public perception of this stuff would shift enough that like something would start to happen.
Yeah. And also, I think, the economics of it also. Like, I mean, I emphasize this isn't really an economic issue. In fact, I wish it were. I mean, even though there's definitely economic aspects to it, I wish it were more of an economic issue. It's sort of like, because the one problem with this whole shelter system is, they get donations from some of these doggy, charities, right? But only if they maintain their no-kill status, right? So the donations are contingent upon their no-kill status. So they got money. They're basically being paid off for this policy, but it can't be that much money. I mean, like I said, the Kalonda Ritchie's estate got, I think it was 3.5 million out of the city of Toledo, Ohio, related, because it was a case similar to this, although she was killed. But there has to be, somebody really has to evaluate the trade-offs, right? You say, okay, we're just going to tell these quote charities to get lost because it's costing us more. Okay, maybe we get $500,000 in donations, but if we get sued for $3.5 million, that's a big net loss. So maybe hopefully that's where it's going to come in. But people need to really evaluate the economic trade-offs here, and the loss in political capital, because you have like no faith in government at all when stuff like this is allowed to happen. None.
Right.
So,
I hope she
interesting.
wins.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I hope she wins.
Oh, me
I hope
too.
she wins. I hope she wins
Yep.
$10 million.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. It's pretty egregious stuff, and there's now precedent for it due to like Kalonda Ritchie's case. There have been other cases like this. There was another one recently where I think I think it was 800 grand, from authorities in a case like this. So, maybe more of that, might, entice them to do the right thing, you hope. Anyway, I wanted to segue to the next topic. North Korea bans keeping dogs as pets unless you plan to eat and skin them. I found this
No.
very interesting. So the North Koreans risk the wrath of the regime if they keep dogs as pets. Notice they're not saying animals, it's just dogs, right? As usual, dogs are the focus. Pyongyang, which is their capital, the canines should only be kept for meat and fur. The bizarre ban was announced to the Socialist Women's Union of Korea, according to a source in the South Pyongyang province, which lies north of the capital. So, basically what the stated reason is that owning a dog is, it's a bourgeois, it's a bourgeoisie, it's a degenerate trapping, essentially. It's incompatible with a socialist lifestyle. One thing I'd like to emphasize, I really even get into this, but I want to delve into the nature of the dog cult itself and what a pernicious influence it is. And really, just as we just discussed, they've totally corrupted all these animal control agencies and other entities. Um, yeah, dressing dogs in clothes, as exemplified by Western celebrities like Paris Hilton, was also singled out for condemnation. The practice, and this goes on and on and on, the attitude is dogs are basically meat that's raised outside in accordance with their nature and then eaten when they die. Okay, such behavior is totally unsocialist and must be strictly eliminated. Um, the purpose emphasize the purpose of raising dogs is to collect more furs. Rising levels of dog ownership, a practice described by the authorities as carrying the stench of the bourgeoisie, reportedly motivated the new edict. So, I wanted to make some remarks on this. This is not good optics for our side. The Kim regime is, well, I think one thing it goes without saying is they have a terrible international reputation, perhaps the worst in the world. Um, what you have is essentially it's a communist monarchy, run by this person. I love these memes, right? He'd go and eat that. The living conditions in the country are terrible. It's a complete human and civil rights disaster. Something like 40% of the population is chronically malnourished, while they're ruled over by these disgusting fat slobs. Nobody should be complimenting the Kim regime. Like I said, it's a terrible look for our side. And I'll say right now, anybody putting anything complimentary of that in my comments section, boom, deleted. Do not do not praise this guy. Don't do it. That country, I mean, there's no freedom of movement, no freedom of speech, no freedom of reproduction. They do forced abortions and baby killings. There's no political freedom. There's no opposing political party or candidate. There's no civil life outside the state. The standard of living is terrible. There's no economic opportunity. There's arbitrary arrest and detention, torture, mass executions, forced labor and slavery, etc., etc., etc. Moreover, and I know I see some of these people, there's nothing fundamentally socialist or not about dog ownership. Karl Marx was a dog person, as was Trotsky, Lenin, Stalin. Okay. What you have here is, I think, I mean, in a system like North Korea's, there's no due process. There's no balance of power. You have a total government solution where all the power is concentrated at the top, and everything is done according to the edict of that person. So again, before somebody tries to praise or promote a regime like this, they should understand it could go the other way. He could have just easily said, you know what? Anybody who doesn't have a pet dog is going to the gulag. Boom. Because whatever he says goes. There's no protection from that.
Yeah, totally. And I don't like pretending that I'm any type of philosopher or expert political analyst. So I don't know anything about North Korea beyond what you've already stated. Um, and essentially agree with the points you've just made. So the only thing I can praise is the idea, the concept of banning dog ownership.
Yeah. Well,
I'll
it's
leave it
probably
at that.
the nicest thing if you could say, okay, the stop clock is right once a day or twice a day. But you could say that about any regime, even like, say, the Nazi regime. The Nazis did do some good and interesting things. And before people jump all over me, like, what things? Rocket science.
Economically, I think they made some good decisions as far as recovering from whatever depression was going on. I think that's,
Yeah,
and
part of
correct
the
me if I'm
problem
not,
with
I'm
that
not a
is that,
historian, but
but if you look at some things, like, for example, like our interstate highway system is patterned after theirs. Because, like, because, Eisenhower, because he was a head general, and they rolled into Germany. He's like, wow, these highways are awesome. They make everything so totally convenient. So when he was elected president, he commissioned the interstate highway system, rocket science. Like, basically their rocket science was far in advance of everyone else. So, too, is even the worst person or the worst organization, the worst regime can occasionally do something right. Just like even the most wonderful person probably has flaws, even the most horrible person probably has some redeeming qualities.
yep, that's the
So
interesting
that's,
nature of humanity, I guess.
yeah.
And
So
a
that's
lot of
probably
people
the
don't like
best thing.
to
But,
parse out nuance like
here,
that. So
here's the thing, though. I wonder, it's like, okay, they talk about it being, anti like socialist, but I could say too was like, look, Karl Marx was a dog person, Trotsky was a dog person, Lenin was a dog person. What are you talking about?
yeah, and there's
So,
another point I'd like to make on those lines too, because I thought it was really, when I first read this article, I thought that line stood out to me, the stench of the bourgeoisie or whatever, which I thought was an interesting point, but you see, and we've talked about on these voice chats, cases of literal homeless. Wasn't there a woman who's homeless and can't get like an apartment because she won't give up her like
oh
9
yeah,
pit bulls or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
so I, like you said, this dog nuttery isn't confined to, bourgeois excess, or, you know what I mean? Any, like, it's not confined to any type of ideology or social economic status or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I found interesting about North Korea is, I mean, the bulk of the people there are, my understanding is, it is miserably dirt poor. I don't think that dog ownership could have been that widespread there due to that. I mean, the standard of living is terrible. It's like in fact, because of my understanding, that there's a significant difference in height between North Koreans and South Koreans, which I think is primarily attributed to malnourishment. Like, they're actually shorter because they've been starved most of their life. But I'm thinking, how could people keep dogs, or at least a significant number of people? I mean, because they've got their top 1%, like every society does. So I could see maybe a few elite people keeping them, but like widespread, I don't think so. Again, unless they're, raising it for food or whatever. But
Which apparently would be allowed in this regime. So yeah, that
yeah.
is a question I had, is like, what like, what was the impetus for this? Yeah,
Well, that's what I wanted to get into, because I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple of days, and I formulated a thesis. And it kind of goes, I'd like to make the point also, or as a segue into that element of this, is that, the dog cult is a very wicked influence. And I think it should be resisted by any civilized minded person, regardless of where they're coming from, whether, small d Democrat, small r Republican, hell, even a constitutional monarchist, democratic socialist, whatever. It's an incredibly wicked, pernicious ideology. And so I was thinking, okay, why, or they also too is like, why dogs? Like, why not go after cat people? Right, I mentioned cats before, or some other pet owner, or bird people, or snake people. And probably not too many people have those animals as pets either. But part of it is that the dog cult, promotes its own interests sort of above and beyond and over that of everything else, right? Because the dog cult itself is an authoritarian political movement, among other things. And actually, even segues like from this is what they do is they rig whatever system they're in. It could be a monarchy, or a capitalist republic, or a socialist democracy, or whatever. They at least they rig the whole system in their favor, right? So it's again, it's a very pernicious and wicked political movement, among other things. They're very elite. They try to sort of achieve an elite status for themselves, and you see that too. And it's true. Like even in all these cases we talk about, if what they were doing were expressed any other way, even with this Kyleen Waltman case, if that outcome had been achieved any other way, that dog owner would be in prison forever. There is another case I want to look at too. This is a similar one. This video here, somebody linked this in an IHD comments section. So this is a woman, I guess she visited a home, and the place was full of pit bulls. They ripped her to shreds right in the front yard. Isn't the cops are there? It's blurred out, but you can say this is the the closed caption. These are the cops talking. You can see her bones, pieces of her everywhere. They were eating her. Okay. I bet if they did autopsies, she's basically, so the police are saying, like, if they autopsy the dogs, they're going to find pieces of this one. But if you go all the way through this, the outcome was the dog owner was not charged with anything. They totally got off the hook. They said, well, it was on the owner's property, so it's all good. If somebody wandered into my yard, and I'm not sure if this person was an invited guest or not, if somebody were to wander into my property and I were to literally just like totally dismember them, say with a chainsaw, I'd never get out of prison. But if you do it with dogs, it's okay. But that's what happens is they've rigged the whole system in their favor.
Yeah, it's actually completely nuts when you think about it in those terms. Like the analogies you could, like if I buried a bunch of landmines on my property and like the UPS driver walked up and like stepped on a landmine and blew his like limbs off, I'm pretty sure I would never see the outside of a prison again.
Yeah, you wouldn't because and it doesn't even have to be. It could even be an innocuous thing. Like if you rig a piano to drop on somebody when they go on your porch and it happens, like the same thing. It's like, because booby trapping in a way that can seriously injure somebody is illegal as hell everywhere. And that's essentially what happened in this case. Kyleen Waltman was off the owner's property. She was walking down a road. It was a public right of way. But since this happened on the owner's property, there's like no charges filed. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about is that the dog cult is a very wicked social movement, political movement. It's a religion also. And they seek to sort of exert domination over everything around them. Actually, one of my peer bloggers last decade called it dog governance. And actually, you've got a bit of that where you are, because these, dog hoarders have moved into your neighborhood. But now you're like, okay, you don't want to let your kids play outside because there's pit bulls and other murder mutts running loose. You've got the fly population is going up 1,000% because of all the dog crap. You hear barking, which also, infringes on your rights and so forth. So they've actually exerted control over you and the people around them. But that goes back to why did Kim target dog owners in like this? And of course, a lot of the reasons given, it's not socialist or whatever. And there's nothing like intrinsically socialist or not about dog ownership. I mean, it's a hobby, it's an interest. And like I said, he could just as easily force everyone to own a dog. But I believe what happened was that he, or perhaps some of his advisors, picked up on, what I picked up on, what many people pick up on. Remember that North Korea is already a total state solution. There's really no interest outside the state. It was actually Mussolini who said, I don't have the quote exactly, but it was something along the lines of like everything within the state, nothing outside the state. So here what you've got is sort of essentially it's competition, right? Because they could see the dog people, they're starting to assert their power, their control. And of course, you got this guy here. There's a system with no balance of power, no due process. He's like, fuck that. Boom, they're gone. They're done. And that is what I think the motivation is because he saw the dog cult, and rightly so, as, competition for his, hegemony, for his, dominance over the population. That's the real motivation for doing this. So you could say maybe he did the right thing for the wrong reason. I mean, I've never really advocated banning dogs everywhere anyway, but dog people should take note of this, that something like this could happen. And it doesn't even have to be in a place like North Korea. There's all kinds of precedent for restricting the keeping of animals. Like ferrets are banned in California. Like you can't have them, there's all kinds of cat restrictions. The only reason we have restrictions on dogs is because dogs are, a political movement. Dogism is a political movement. These other animals don't have the political capital that dogs do. But that could change. You could have, dog-free areas, even inside our system, are not implausible. So dog people should take note. And I'm sure it was probably most people like us, we're critical of dogs in society for whatever, human health, human safety, human quality of life, human rights reasons. Now, I guarantee that Kim does not give a shit about any of those things. But, another reason to resist is like, dogism is a political cult. And they're going to try to, leech power off of whatever the regime is. Like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter what the political paradigm is. They're going to assert their control.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory, and it seems reasonable. What is the like overall majority like religion in North Korea? Because
there isn't one. There's no religious
the dog thing is kind of like a cult, religious type cult as well.
That too. Well, yeah, there's no I believe there's no religious rights there. You can't worship anything except the leader, because I think that's the thing is like what goes on is I think the citizens are expected to sort of glorify and idolize him. And yeah, and you're right, that's probably taking away from that too. We don't want, he's not saying, okay, you shouldn't worship dogs because it's demented and unhealthy. He doesn't want them worshiping dogs because it takes, the spotlight off of him. So,
yeah, I tend to agree with your analysis there. I think it makes the most sense because, like, yeah, as you said, I doubt that dog ownership among a starving population is such an issue at this point that he's banning them for any type of like social reason, or it makes sense that it's weird though, and it kind of shows like how powerful the dog cult is if he views it as like an actual political threat. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I'm sure he does. Yeah, I'm sure he did. And it is powerful. I mean, you look at what it's done. I mean, it's corrupted systems everywhere, and even you would think too, like in some Middle Eastern or, Islamic majority countries, you think I know, because I'm actually fairly kind of well versed in Islamic canon, and they're not exactly dog friendly. Muhammad was not a dog person at all. But, however, it seems like in many places, I don't know, give a shout out to Yusuf. And I believe he's in Turkey, and he shared a video. I believe it was him. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And it was in Turkey, and it was it was in a big department store, sort of like a Macy's. It wasn't Macy's, but it was a large department store that sold clothing and housewares and so forth. And there's just dogs lying all over the floor, just like hanging out there. Like, what the hell? So yeah, it's like even where they've managed to corrupt even that. I mean, it's like I said, it doesn't matter because, I mean, I know at least some of these Islamic countries are what you would call like a theocracy, but the dog cult manages to usurp even that. It's like,
Yeah, true. And in general, I feel like, yeah, in the Arab and Islamic world, it's somewhat less due to the religious reasons. I mean, I don't know. Just based on my like upbringing, I wasn't raised uh Islamic, but my dad is like Middle Eastern, and dogs were definitely generally viewed as like dirty livestock type animals that belong outside only. But
yeah,
yeah, it's making inroads even in those types of cultures.
yep, yep. Yeah, but I think it's important for everybody to realize, I think any civic minded person, regardless of your overall political outlook, should be opposed to the dog cult. It's like enough of these, people and their stupid ass privileges and protections. Like this situation here is just absurd. Like they're literally ripping people to shreds and getting away with it. And I think all the problems they cause. I know Chef put out, shout out to her, another video on service dog fakery. And it was from I guess a blind man had written in about his take on it, not a guide dog user, his bad experiences with dogs and just dogs in general as a blind person. But that's the kind of thing. Yeah, that whole scenario is really just another example of the dog cult hegemony, right? It's like everything is rigged in favor of dogs. All you got to say is like, yeah, it's a service dog. Nobody else is allowed to do anything like that except them because they have, accumulated so much power and political capital. It's just ridiculous what they get away with. I'm sure like Kim saw, and he didn't do it so perhaps he did the right thing for the wrong reason because he doesn't want, like in that total state solution, nobody and nothing else gets one iota political capital. It's all concentrated with him, period. So.
It would have been interesting to see the I guess policy or the discussions that led up to this announcement, though. Like, you know what I mean? It would be curious to kind of, if we ever got like an insight into the way they viewed it. And
well, that's the thing is that I mean their system is organized quite differently than ours. So again, it really is. It's a totalitarian dictatorship. So whatever the guy at the top says goes. Like for example, like in this country, let's say Joe Biden signed an executive order banning dogs as pets. They wouldn't go anywhere because probably immediately the Supreme Court would block it. Congress would block it. States, it would be nullified at the state level in many states. Like it wouldn't really gain a lot of traction because our system has those checks and balances, or at least that would be my expectation. Not that he would anyway. I mean, he's a big dog
no, his
person,
dog's
but
busy biting everyone.
yeah, it's like, yeah. But I'm just saying that as a point that it's sort of like, he couldn't do that, right? I think you could
Right,
try,
yeah.
but it probably wouldn't gain. Well, first of all, you wouldn't gain a lot of traction. I wouldn't support him doing it either. Mainly because that's not a good way. You don't want a system where everything's arbitrary. Where just like one person at the top just calls all the shots. Mainly because it could go the other way. They could do what you want, but they could also do what you really don't want. Kim could have made dog ownership mandatory just as easily because again, it's not. I mean, there's giving some rationalizations here. It says one of the ways wealthy people waste money in a capitalist society. I mean, I know that's the state propaganda because he probably called for this. So his minions are like, okay, how are we going to spin it? They say, well, it's not, it's fundamentally unsocialist. But sort of like this guy is sort of the quintessential like champagne communist. He lives literally like a king while most of his people starve. I don't even want to get into that. I don't like getting onto like irrelevant, political tangents, but that's the thing too, is nobody on our side should be praising him or promoting his regime. It's just not good. It's a terrible look. And actually, even our adversary, like Superstar Writer, has already pounced on this. And I don't blame him. Actually, I would if I were him also. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like if he did say, "Oh, dog ownership is now mandatory," we'd be like, "See?"
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other thing too. Is, I mean, you could say it's funny because often, many times in my career, well, you get accused if you spend any time in the space, you get accused of being a Nazi, a communist, a racist, and so forth. But I mean, Hitler was a dog person. And again, and so were, a lot of these like big time communist dictators, like, well, Marx himself, Trotsky, Lenin, Stalin were all dog people also. So, again, the dog cult does not align with any modern political ideology. It's not really a left wing or a right wing thing. And I don't want it to be so, because I don't want what we're doing to be, associated with, totalitarian regimes, because I'm not totalitarian at all. So I wanted to move on to the next topic on the Discord the other day, because I think you posted the link to, I think it was a Tales from the Doghouse, where let me see if I can bring that up. Let me see if I can find that. Where
Yes.
was that? 40. Oh, that was the one that oh yeah, because we were talking about, oh yeah, here it is. Let me copy this link.
Quite a wild story.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah. Was this it? Oh yeah, this was it. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
I think
thought I would
that's
get
the second screenshot.
the
So
second screenshot. Let me get the first one.
there's one that includes like the beginning of the story.
Yeah, let me see. Open. I don't want to do that. Let's do this. Hold on. Well, I keep coming up with a second page for some reason. Let me try this. Copy link. Let me go see if I can pull up the first page.
I remember the story.
Oh, here we are. Okay, yeah. My husband's dog died 2 years ago, and she's still a problem for me. My husband used the dog to fill his emotional needs. So when the dog got sick, he refused to see she was suffering, refused to put her down. So as the dog approached death, more and more pictures. So now there's like framed pictures of the dog all over the house. I thought it would get better after. And it has, in the way that she's not, so you're not putting up with a nuisance of the dog itself, but
you're haunted by the ghost of the dog still.
My husband's grief. Yeah. My husband's grief, she died. Her ashes are on display in our living room, as well as paw prints and collars. Of course, he had to have her at her wedding. So we tried watching the wedding video on our first anniversary, a few months after she died. He broke down in tears over her. I cried too, because I was so hurt that instead of happily reliving our wedding day, he was crying over the dog. I haven't opened the video since, and I don't know when this is really sad. First of all, this man is deeply mentally ill. And I think the whole scale of nuttery needs to be updated, because this guy is like beyond a level 5. He's like a 6 at least. But it gave me the idea that we should have, it would be, strictly for, well, maybe not strictly for entertainment value, but for entertainment value, to hold a dog nutter Olympics, right? So where we would, select various, competitors, contestants, and, judge them and on various criteria. I don't have to come up with what these things are. I'm just the idea is very high level at this point. And
And
so we
what
could
an
come
idea
up
it
with,
is. I love this idea.
yeah, I think it would be fun. And we could take like, okay, contestants, and people could submit. I think I'd like to set a few ground rules. Maybe we could start that in the beginning. We're not taking contestants yet. I think once we get all the rules for the game of the century set up, we'll start taking contestants. Maybe we'll have to have sort of a semifinals, and then a final. We'll like weed them out. So if we
Yeah, I was
get,
thinking even like a bracket, like kind of a championship bracket
yeah,
style.
championship bracket, yeah, so like we'll like weed them out till we get to sort of like a championship, playoffs of nutters, with this kind of thing. And we can rank them based on different criteria, like say law breaking, or this kind of thing, like placing the dog ahead of their human partner or children, rage monster behavior, living in filth, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have to think of these things up, the different like sort of categories on which they can.
Yeah, there's got to
And we
be,
do
yeah, we
that
got to
too. It's
categorize them.
right, sort of like how do they like with calculate a team. I was looking at the Olympics site. How do you calculate a team score in gymnastics? Although this would be individual, it'd be more like a shot put or 100-yard dash or something like that. But we could judge them, individually, and we could then where did I have that? Go down a little. Oh yeah, this. Like copy this link. Yeah, this. So, and then once we have, our finalists selected, see this here, we could hand out these medals. See, it's a dog crap in the middle, we could, award each of these contenders or medals. Like, yeah, hey, you won a gold in the Dog Nutter Olympics. It's in a contest. You know what I'd like to do though is, I mean, somebody like this person here, this, I would like I said, I have to come up with some rules. Well, first for submitting contestants, I would prefer that it be somebody somebody like somebody who's either in or has been in your life, like a family member, friend, coworker, neighbor, right? And you could tell the whole story behind them. And we could, because I think if it's a person in real life that we could actually like give a medal to, because we don't know this person, but I mean, we could reach out to the OP of this. I think this was, is this post still up?
I was still able to see it
But I
the
think
last
it
time
was,
I checked, but you said it was removed, so I
I
haven't
think
gone
it
back and
was,
looked.
I don't know about these people, because I know like in my case is, I'm very, very cynical and sarcastic about this. And some people might not appreciate that, because you could you could try to contact this woman and say, we'd like to enter your husband in our Dog Nutter Olympics. Um, she might not appreciate that. Maybe she would, because maybe the thing is, it's kind of when I came up with the barking dog bingo. And I said, you should, if you get a neighbor with an endlessly barking dog and they just keep making all the asinine excuses, look, we know you're full of shit. We're on to your baloney, essentially to mock them. I don't know how much. Yeah, I don't know how much, because a lot of these stories, particularly the tales in the doghouse, and these are really sad. But who knows? It's like maybe handing him, and this guy is definitely a contender, might snap him out of it. Like, you're being ridiculous. You could say, yeah, you got a 10 out of 10 for, denying the emotional needs of your partner. I don't know how much a relationship would almost perfect without the dog. So I'm not going to leave him over it. So like I said too, yeah, it doesn't end when the dog dies. So it's like, yeah, they're still haunted by the death of this dog. I mean, but it really is. It's like they lost a kid or something, or he did. Um, and you can't think that way about animals. They don't live as long as we do. You would expect most of the time your human children would outlive you, but your pets, no. I mean, having pets die on you is it's a routine fact of life, provided you're a pet person. I mean, where's all this coming from? I mean, this is somebody who clearly feels that, yeah, the dog was like his kid for real, but he's not just saying it for virtue signaling purposes. He totally internalized it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's affecting his home life, his wife's emotional state. His emotional state is disturbed. Like there's something very deep going on here psychologically with this guy, and it's
Yep.
honestly disturbing. And it is sad for everyone involved. It's sad for the wife because imagine wanting to celebrate your 1 year anniversary, and your husband is like, inconsolable over a dead dog.
Yeah. I
I
mean, one thing
mean,
he said, yeah, I'm really glad Fido got to make it to her wedding, but yeah, the way he's acting, he's totally demented.
it's truly another thing stood out to me about this, which is a red flag to me, or would be in this situation. He's keeping and bringing along old, dirty, stinking like dog beds and
Yep.
bowls of water and food bowls. To me, that's like, okay, clearly he's like going to get another dog. Like, why else would you keep that stuff? He wants another dog to use the dog bowls. I would think that's what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's some for him. I guess there's sentimental value attached to them. But you're right. I'm kind of wondering why he's not pressuring her to get another dog. Maybe he is. I don't know. Did it say in here if if there was any like pressure to get another dog?
It did not, no, which surprised me. Um, that it didn't seem like he was pushing at least yet in this story for another dog. But someone this hung up on a dog, I would think they would probably at some point want another one.
Oh yeah, I would expect so also. That's what almost seems kind of strange about it. Maybe he's so loyal to because most of them, yeah, they'll like, oh, Rover's like my kid, but the dog dies like a week later, they got another one. Um, but I think this guy really, really feels it. I mean,
Yeah, maybe this one was the love of his life, really.
yeah, I mean, he's definitely a nutter true believer, um, for real. Crazy.
Well, I'm going to start thinking of categories or ways to evaluate uh, our future contestants. And yeah, I would really like to see this um, be something that could could take off because it's A, hilarious, B, it might wake some people. I don't know, maybe it'll snap some people out of it.
Yeah,
C, it could be extremely cathartic for, say, this like woman if her husband received like the gold medal dog shit award.
yeah, or hell, even a bronze.
I
It's
mean, even a bronze, you got that. It's a tough. It's a lot of competition.
yeah, it's a lot of competition. We need contested. I think I'm trying to limit it because I'd like to. I think the preference would be like, here's my thought: like anybody can nominate, say, like two people, and you'd have to give like a full description of this scenario, like how they qualify for this competition. Maybe like a max two people. I don't want somebody coming back with like 50 entrants. It's at least from one person. But I'd like at least one contestant, like each, nominating person, nominate at least one person that they know personally, right? Like it's their neighbor, it's their family member, their coworker, their spouse or ex-spouse, perhaps. I think that would make it more interesting. I think it more personal also. I mean, I've got a few ideas, but then I'd really have to think about, okay, of all the nutters I've crossed paths with, like, who's the nuttiest nutter I've ever encountered? I'd have to, think about that. I'm
Yeah, my
thinking
current
like,
neighbor would be in the running, I think.
yeah, they definitely be in the running. With me, it would be my ex neighbor because they like ran the whole thing, like breaking laws, tantruming behavior, entitlement, selfish, entitled attitude. We could rank on that. It's like, how entitled are they? That kind of thing. How, when they pull a rage monster, like, do they actually get violent, or did they actually like physically assault somebody, or do they just yell and scream, like that kind of thing? Yeah, it'd be fun. Anyway, actually, I'm thinking of wrapping it up. Unless, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss?
Uh, that covered. Oh, one sec. Yeah, that pretty much covered everything. I was most looking forward to the Olympics, so I'm looking forward to continuing that discussion after we give it some more thought.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's a good place to stop for now.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of. Actually, I was going to cancel this. I had a migraine earlier
Oh
today.
no.
Yeah, and I was going to cancel, but then I laid out for a while and I felt better. So I said, "All right, the call's still a go." So I'm glad we
Nice.
did it. I'd like to. I like to keep new material out there. There's always so much to talk about.
That's the thing. I mean, like you said, this contest, I feel like we all could probably enter 50 different. The nuttering
Yeah,
knows no bounds. The
yeah, but I like
limit
to
does not
limit it
exist.
maybe to like 2 nominees per person. It doesn't. It could be, somebody in the Discord or even a YouTube commenter. We got plenty of secondary, commenters or creators out there. Um, that was actually, it was interesting. It was going to the fake service dog thing. It was a shout out to Mercury's orbit. And Mercury, I wrote this down, but then I think I threw it out. But we were talking about, what he mentioned was it was a principle of arbitrary claims. Principle of arbitrary claims. And what that means is that any claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And I like that. It's a very eloquent way of putting it. I mean, I think we'd mentioned that before. We said, okay, if these people don't have to prove anything, then we don't have to believe them. But shout out to Mercury's orbit for the principle of arbitrary claims. I like that. I'll have to add that to the vernacular.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up then. So, as always, this is Animal on Control. People first. Catch you later.
See ya.
Yep.